Let's understand ratio analysis first. The term financial ratio can be explained by defining that how it is calculated and what is the basic objective behind calculation. The calculation of ratio is dependent on four things. The calculation shows the relationship which is expressed in numerical or arithmetical terms. It is in between two individual figures or group of figures. And these two figures are connected with each other in some logical manner and selected from the financial statements, that is from profit and loss account and balance sheet. The objective of financial ratios is that all stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, here it means owners, investors, lenders, employees, and such other persons which are related or dependent on the concern. And with the help of financial ratios, they can draw some conclusions. The conclusions with regards to the performance of the concern, with regards to its strength and weakness of the firm, and can thereby take decisions on the basis of performance, strength, and weakness. Ratio analysis is based on the fact that single accounting figure by itself may not communicate the complete meaning or may not extract a meaningful information, but when it is being expressed with relation to or in a relative manner, then it will derive some meaning. Ratio analysis is not just comparing two different numbers from the financial statement or from cash flow or from income statement, but it is comparing the number against the previous years of the same company or of the other company or within the industry or even within the economy. Basically, there are four types of ratios: liquidity ratio, capital structure or leverage ratios, activity ratio, and profitability ratio. Let's understand the first one, that is liquidity ratio. The term liquidity and short-term solvency are normally used or they are normally interchangeable. Liquidity or solvency ratio, it is the ability of liquidity or solvency ratio is the ability of the firm to pay off its short-term liabilities, and it also helps us to know the incapability to pay off short-term liabilities, which will surely affect the creditability as well as the credit rating. If there is continuous shortfall or if there is continuous default in payment of creditors or liability, at the end the company or the concern will shut down. Short-term lenders and creditors of a business are very much interested to know the short-term liquidity of the company. Basically, two ratios are normally used to highlight the liquidity of the firm. The two ratios are current ratio and quick ratio. There are few other ratios also, like cash ratio, interval measure ratio, and net working capital ratio. Let's have an illustration, and based on that illustration, we will understand all the types of ratios in detail and in a clear manner. Home Design Limited consolidated balance sheet is given for the 2 years, that is for February 2nd, 2012 and February 2nd, 2013. The figures given are in lakhs, starting with assets. In assets, we have current assets, cash and cash equivalents of 2,188 in the year 2012, 2,477 in the year 2013. Short-term investments including current maturities of long-term investments 65 in the year 2012 and 69 in the year 2013. Receivables are net of 1,072 in the year 2012 and 920 in the year 2013. Merchandise inventories 8,338 in the year 2012 and 6,725 in the year 2013. Other current assets 254 for the year 2012 and 170 for the year 2013. The total of all current assets amount to 11,917 for the year 2012 and 10,361 for the year 2013. Property and other equipment are recorded at cost. Land 5,560 for the year 2012, 4,972 for the year 2013. Buildings 9,197 for the year 2012, 7,698 for the year 2013. Furniture, fixtures and equipment 4,074 for the year 2012, 3,403 for the year 2013. Leasehold improvements for the year 2012, 872 for the year 2013, 750. Construction in progress 724 for the year 2012, 1,049 for the year 2013. Capital leases 306 for the year 2012 and 257 for the year 2013. The total of property and equipment which are recorded at cost amount to 20,733 for the year 2012 and 18,129 for the year 2013. From that, accumulated depreciation and amortization is accordingly reduced, which is 3,565 and 2,754 for 2012 and 2013 respectively. Therefore, the net amount of property and equipment amounts to 17,168 for the year 2012 and 15,375 for the year 2013. Net receivables are given at 107 in the year 2012 and 83 in the year 2013. Cost in excess of fair value of net assets acquired, net of accumulated amortization of rupees 50 at February 2, 2013 and rupees 49 at February 3, 2012, which amounts to 575 for the year 2012 and 419 for the year 2013. Other assets 244 for the year 2012 and 156 for the year 2013. The total of assets is 30,011 for the year 2012 and 26,394 for the year 2013. Let's look at the liabilities. In liabilities, we have liabilities and shareholders' equity. Starting with current liabilities. In current liabilities, we have accounts payable, which amount to 4,560 and 3,436 for the year 12 and 13. There is accrued salaries and related expenses, which is 809 for the year 2012 and 717 for the year 2013. Sales tax payable 307 and 348 for the year 2012 and 2013. Deferred revenue 998 and 851 for the year 2012 and 2013. Income tax payable 227 and 211 for the year 2012 and 2013. Other accrued expenses 1,134 and 938 for the year 12 and 13 respectively. The total of current liabilities thereby amount to 8,035 for the year 2012 and 6,501 for the year 2013. Long-term debt excluding current installments is 1,321 and 1,250 for the year 2012 and 2013. Other long-term liabilities 491 for the year 2012 and 372 for the year 2013. There is deferred income tax, which is 362 and 189 for the year 2012 and 2013 respectively. The total of liabilities amount to 10,209 and 8,312. Let's look at the details of shareholders' equity. Equity shares per value is rupees 0.05. Authorized shares 10,000. Issued and outstanding shares are 2,362 at February 3, 2013 and 2,346 shares at February 3, 2012. The equity shares which are recorded at par amount to 118 for the year 2012 and 117 for the year 2013. There is paid up capital of 5,858 and 5,412 in the year 2012 and in the year 2013 respectively. There is retained earnings of 15,971 in the year 2012 and 12,799 in the year 2013. Accumulated other comprehensive loss 82 for the year 2012 and 220 for the year 2013. There is unearned compensation to the extent of 63 in the year 2012 and 26 in the year 2013. There is treasury stock at cost 69 shares as on February 2, 2013, which is 2000 in the year 2012. Total shareholders' equity amount to 19,802 for the year 2012 and 18,082 for the year 2013. Total liabilities and shareholders' equity thereby amount to 30,011 for the year 2012 and 26,394 for the year 2013. This was all about the consolidated balance. Let's understand the first important ratio with regards to liquidity is current ratio. Current ratio is one of the best known measures to determine the financial strength of the concern. It is the most common measure to determine the short-term liquidity of the concern. It is also referred as working capital ratio because working capital is at the end, it is a difference between current assets and current liabilities. Current ratio, the formula of current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. Let's understand current assets. Current assets comprise of inventories, sundry debtors, cash and bank balances, receivables, all accruals, loans and advances, and disposable investments. Current liabilities comprise of creditors of goods and services, short-term loans, bank overdraft, cash credit, outstanding expenses, provision for taxes, proposed dividend, and unclaimed dividend. The main question for this ratio is that does your business have enough of current assets to meet the payment of current debts and current liabilities with a safety margin of all the possible losses and which will be covered by current assets. The generally accepted standard ratio for current ratio is 2:1. But whether or not specific ratio is satisfactory, it depends on the nature of business. There are many businesses in which cash is generated at a very faster rate. In such businesses, even though the ratio is less than, that is, even though the ratio is not 2:1, if it is less than 2:1, still the company has good solvency. In the illustration of home design company, let's understand current ratio. The formula of current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. Current assets we have seen in the illustration amounted to 11,917 and current liabilities we have already seen in the illustration amounted to 8,035. Therefore, in that case, current ratio is equal to 1.48. 1.48, how we have got the figure of 1.48? It is 11,917 divided by 8,035. Here, current assets include cash and cash equivalents, accounts receivable, all sorts of marketable securities, and these marketable securities are classified as current inventories and prepaid expenses. Current liabilities include accounts payable, all short-term payments, current maturities of long-term debts, unearned revenue, and few other accrued liabilities. The second important ratio for liquidity ratio is quick ratio. It is also called as acid test ratio. It is also considered one of the best measures to determine the liquidity with regards to short term. Let's look at the formula of quick ratio. The formula of quick ratio is quick assets divided by current liabilities. When I say quick assets, the formula of quick assets is current assets minus inventories. This quick ratio is much more conservative measure as compared to current ratio. It helps the answer of the question that if all the sales revenue, if it disappear, then still the concern is in position to meet off the current obligations. Quick assets consist only of cash and near cash assets. Inventories are deducted or they are excluded from current assets. on the thought that these are not considered as near cash assets, and also because in times of financial difficulty, inventory may be saleable only at liquidity value. It may be saleable only at liquidation value. But in seller's market, inventories are also near cash assets. The acid test ratio, the standard ratio or the satisfactory is 1:1. Unless the majority of quick assets are in accounts receivable and the pattern of accounts receivable collection lags behind the schedule of paying current liabilities. Let's understand quick ratio again with the help of that same illustration of home design. Quick ratio, the formula is quick assets divided by current liabilities. Quick assets is current assets minus inventory. Current assets, we already know the value of current assets, that is 11,917 minus inventory, which amounts to 8,338, divided by current liabilities, which is 8,035. Therefore, quick ratio is 0.45. Let's understand the third ratio, which is called as cash ratio or absolute liquidity ratio. The cash ratio measures the absolute liquidity of the business. This ratio considers only the absolute liquidity which is available with the firm. Let's understand the formula of this ratio. It is cash plus marketable securities divided by current liabilities gives us the cash ratio. A subsequent innovation is being done in ratio analysis. The absolute liquidity ratio thereby eliminates the unknown surrounding receivables. The absolute liquidity ratio only tests the short-term liquidity which is in regards to cash and marketable securities. The next ratio is basic defense interval. The formula for basic defense interval is cash plus receivables plus marketable securities divided by operating expenses plus interest plus income tax. The denominator is further divided by 365. If for some reason, if all the company's revenue gets suddenly stopped, then the basic defense interval will help us to determine the number of days the company can cover its cash expenses without any help of additional financing. Many times it so happens that the company's revenue cannot be generated and it is stopped suddenly. Then with the help of this ratio, it can very well determine that without any additional funding, till how much time the company can function when all the revenues are stopped. Another ratio is net working capital ratio. Net working capital ratio is more of a measure of cash flow than a ratio. The result of this calculation must be a positive number. The net working capital ratio is current assets minus current liabilities, and it excludes short-term bank borrowings. Bankers look at net working capital over a time to determine and to know the company's ability to whether it can bear or what is its financial crisis. Loans are often tied to minimum capital requirement. The next ratio is capital structure or leverage ratio. The capital structure or leverage ratio may be defined as those financial ratios which measure the long-term stability and the structure of the firm. These ratios indicate a mix of funds which are provided by owners and lenders, and it assures the lenders of long-term funds with regard to periodic payment of interest during the period of loan and repayment of principal amount on maturity. Therefore, leverage ratios are of two types: capital structure ratio and coverage ratio. Capital structure ratio is a ratio which provides an insight into the financing techniques, and these are used by a business and focus a consequence on long-term solvency position. Till now, we have seen the ratios which concentrate on the short-term solvency, but with the help of capital structure ratio, we can determine or we can judge the long-term solvency position of the concern. From the balance sheet, one can very well get the data, or one can very well get to know the absolute fund employed and its sources, but only capital structure ratio gives us the relative weight of different sources. The popularly used ratios are basically three. The first one is equity ratio, second one debt ratio, and third one debt to equity ratio. Let's see the formula of equity ratio. Equity ratio is shareholders' equity divided by total capital employed. This ratio indicates the proportion of owner's fund which is involved in the total fund which is so invested in the business. That to what extent owners have their contribution with regards to the total funds which is involved in the business. Traditionally, it was believed that higher the proportion of owners' fund would lower the risk factor. Let's look at the second ratio, that is debt ratio. The debt ratio, the formula of debt ratio is total debt divided by capital employed. Now here, the total debt includes both, that is short and long-term borrowings from financial institutions, debentures, bonds, deferred payment arrangements for buying capital equipments, bank borrowings, public deposits, and any other interest-bearing loan. Capital employed includes total debt and net worth. This ratio helps us to analyze the long-term solvency of the firm. The third ratio is debt to equity ratio. The formula of debt to equity ratio is total liabilities divided by shareholders' equity. A high ratio here means a less protection for creditors, and a low ratio on the other hand indicates a more of safety cushion. When I say a more of safety cushion, here I mean to say that creditors would feel that the owner's funds will help to absorb possible losses of income and capital. This ratio indicates the extent to which, how much is the debt involved and how much is the equity involved. This ratio is very often referred in capital structure decision as well as in legislation dealing with capital structure decisions. That is, how many shares are to be issued and how many debentures are to be issued. Lenders are also very keen to know this ratio as it shows the relative weight of debt and equity. Debt equity ratio is an indicator of firm's financial leverage. According to traditional thought, the cost of capital firstly decreases due to higher dose of leverage, reaches to minimum, and therefore it goes on increasing. So infinite increase in leverage, that is debt equity ratio, is just not possible. Presently, practically if you see that there is no norm for maximum debt equity ratio. Leading institutions generally set their own norms for considering the capital intensity and those factors. Let's understand this ratio with the help of the same illustration of home design. The formula of debt equity ratio is total liabilities divided by total equity. Your total liabilities amount to 10,209 divided by total equity of 19,802. Therefore, the debt equity ratio is 51.56 in percent. Let's look at another ratio, debt to total assets ratio. This ratio measures the proportion of total assets which are financed by debt and therefore the extent of financial leverage. The formula of debt to total assets is total liabilities divided by total assets. Let's understand even this ratio with the help of illustration of home design. The debt to total assets is equal to total liabilities divided by total assets. The formula of it is 10,209 divided by 30,011 multiplied by 100. Therefore, the percent is 34.02%. Let's look at another type of ratio, that is coverage ratio. The coverage ratio measures the firm's ability to service the fixed liabilities. This ratio establishes the relationship between fixed claim and what is normally available out of which these claims are to be paid. The fixed claims comprises of interest on loan, preference dividend, amortization of principal or repayment of installments of loans or redemption of preference capital on maturity. There are few important aspects to be covered, or there are few important coverage ratios. The first one is debt service coverage ratio. In this ratio, lenders are more interested and With the help of this ratio, they can judge the firm's ability to pay off current interest as well as the installment amount. Therefore, the formula of debt service coverage ratio is equal to earnings available for debt service divided by interest plus installments. Here in denominator, we consider two factors, that is interest and installment. So, with the help of this ratio, the lenders will get to know that to what extent the firm is capable to pay off not just interest but also the principal amount which is to be repaid. In numerator, we have earnings which is available for debt service. The formula for it is net profit plus non-cash operating expenses like depreciation and other amortizations plus non-operating adjustments like loss on sale of fixed assets plus interest on debt funds. The second ratio in coverage ratio is interest coverage ratio. Here the only factor we will consider is the interest. We will not consider the installment payment factor. This ratio helps us to know the times interest earned ratio. It indicates the firm's ability to meet or to pay off interest obligation. This ratio is computed by the formula of earning before interest and tax divided by interest. Earnings before interest and tax are used in numerator of this ratio because the ability to pay interest is not affected by tax burden as interest on debt funds is deductible expense. This ratio indicates the extent to which the earning may fall without causing any embarrassment to the firm regarding the payment of interest charge. A very high ratio means that the concern is very much capable to pay off the interest obligation. Even if the EBIT, that is earning before interest and tax, is suffered or is declined, a lower ratio indicates that there is excessive use of debt, or we can say that the debt is not being used efficiently. Let's understand this ratio with the help of illustration. With the same illustration of home design, interest coverage ratio is equal to earnings before interest and tax divided by interest expense. Here, earning before interest and tax we have already computed amounts to 5,830 divided by interest expense, that is 37. Therefore, the ratio thereby amounts to 157.5. The next ratio is preference dividend coverage ratio. This ratio helps us to determine the firm's capacity to pay dividend to preference shareholders at a stated rate of return. This ratio is computed by the formula of earnings after tax divided by preference dividend liability. Earnings after tax is considered because, unlike debt on which interest is charged on profit of the firm, the preference dividend is treated as appropriation of profit. Whenever the dividend is being distributed, it is an item of appropriation. This ratio normally indicates the margin of safety which is available to preference shareholders. The higher ratio is desirable for preference shareholders' point of view. The another ratio is capital gearing ratio. In addition to debt equity ratio, sometimes capital gearing ratio is also calculated, and with the help of this ratio we can get to know the proportion of fixed interest bearing capital to funds belonging to equity shareholders. That is, to what extent the funds belong to equity shareholders. The formula of capital gearing ratio is preference share capital plus debentures plus long-term loan divided by equity share capital plus reserves in surplus minus losses. Here, if you see the formula, we can very well conclude that in numerator we have those amounts. In this ratio, if you see, in numerator we have those funds on which fixed amount has to be paid as cost of capital, whereas in denominator the amount of cost of capital is not fixed. So with the help of this ratio we can very well judge the long-term solvency position along with debt equity ratio and capital gearing ratio. There are few other formulas which can also be used. Fixed assets divided by long-term funds. It is expected that fixed assets and core working capital are to be covered by long-term fund. In various industries, the proportion of fixed assets and current assets are different. So there is no uniform or there is no standard ratio, but it should be less than 1. If it is more than 1, it means that short-term funds have been used to finance fixed assets. Very often, many companies resort to such practice during expansion period. It may be of temporary nature, but not recommended for long term. Why it is not recommended for long term? Because the fixed assets are to be used for a longer period of time, and if they are financed by a short-term fund has to be repaid in a shorter period. Therefore, again for those fixed assets, again new borrowings has to be done, again funds has to be raised if the funding is done by short term. Therefore, it is always recommended that for fixed assets, long-term funding has to be done, and therefore this ratio should always be less than 1. Another ratio is proprietary ratio. The formula of proprietary ratio is proprietary fund divided by total assets. When we say proprietary fund comprises of equity share capital, preference share capital, reserves and surplus, less fictitious assets. The total assets exclude fictitious assets and losses. With the help of this ratio, we get to know that to what extent equity share capital and preference share capital are involved with regards to total assets. The next type of ratio is activity ratios. The other names for activity ratios are turnover ratios or performance ratios. These ratios are basically calculated to determine the efficiency with which the firm manages and utilizes its assets. For this reason, they are oftenly called as asset management ratios. These ratios usually indicate the frequency of sales with respect to its assets. These assets may be capital assets or working capital or average inventory. These ratios are usually calculated with reference to sales or cost of goods sold and are expressed in terms of rate of times. Let's look at some important activity ratios. The first one, capital turnover ratio. This ratio indicates the firm's ability of generating sales per rupee of long-term investment. The higher the ratio, the more efficient is the utilization of owners and short-term creditors' fund. The formula of capital turnover ratio is sales divided by capital employed. With the help of this ratio, we can very well understand that the firm's capacity of generating sales on the basis of long-term investments. Fixed assets turnover ratio. It measures the efficiency with which the firm utilizes its fixed assets. That is, how effectively and efficiently the fixed assets are utilized to generate sales. A high fixed asset turnover will indicate the efficient or the proper utilization of fixed assets to generate sale. A firm whose plant and machinery are old may not show that higher fixed assets than the firm which has newly purchased those plant and machinery. Therefore, it is recommended that the firm needs to have a high ratio or a high fixed asset turnover ratio, because a high fixed asset turnover ratio indicates proper utilization of fixed assets to generate sales. Let's understand this ratio with the help of illustration of home design. Fixed asset turnover ratio is equal to sales divided by average net fixed assets. The value of sales is directly given in the question. It is 58,247 divided by average net fixed assets. When we say average net fixed assets, here we have to consider opening balance, opening amount of fixed assets and closing amount of fixed assets divided by 2. That is closing fixed assets plus opening fixed assets divided by 2, which amounts to 16,272. How we have got the figure of 16,272 is 17,168 plus 15,375 divided by 2. Therefore, the fixed assets turnover ratio is 3.58 times. How we have got 3.58 times 58,247 divide by 16,272. The next ratio is total asset turnover ratio. This ratio measures the efficiency with which the firm utilizes its total assets. The formula of total asset ratio is sales divided by average total assets. Let's understand this with the help of illustration. We'll continue with the same illustration of home design. Total asset turnover is equal to sales divided by average total assets. When I say average total assets, here we have to consider the average of assets. Therefore, in numerator we will have 58,247 divided by 28,203. Therefore, the ratio thereby amounts to 2.07 times. The next ratio is working capital turnover. The formula of working capital turnover is sales divided by working capital. Working capital turnover is further segregated into inventory turnover, debtors turnover and creditors turnover. Let's understand the first one, inventory turnover ratio. This ratio is known as stock turnover ratio and it determines or it expresses the relationship between two, that is cost of goods sold during the year and the average of inventory which was held during the year. It measures the efficiency with which a firm can utilize or manage its inventory. Here, the efficiency is from the point of view of inventory. The formula of inventory turnover ratio is sales divided by average inventory. When I say average inventory is opening plus closing divided by 2. Very often, inventory turnover is calculated with reference to cost of sales instead of sales. In that case, inventory turnover will be calculated with the help of the formula, that is cost of sales divided by average stock. The students are basically advised to follow this formula for calculating inventory turnover ratio. In case of inventory of raw material, the inventory turnover ratio will be calculated by another formula, that is raw material consumed will be your numerator divided by average raw material stock. This ratio indicates that how fast the inventory is used or sold. A high ratio indicates a good performance from company's point of view, whereas low indicates the bad performance. A high ratio also indicates a good liquidity and a low indicates a bad liquidity position. A low ratio would indicate that inventory is not being used or sold or lost, or it is kept in warehouse for a very longer period. Let's understand this ratio with the help of illustration. We'll continue with the same illustration of home design. Inventory turnover is cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. The cost of goods sold will directly get from the question, that is 40,139 divided by average inventory. When I say average inventory, we have to consider opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. Here the closing stock is 8,338 plus 6,725 divided by 2. The average inventory now amounts to 7,532. A related measure is the number of days sales in inventory. The number of days sales in inventory can be calculated as average inventory divided by cost of goods sold further divided by 365. Because we want to calculate in number of days, therefore we have considered 365. The figures are 7,532 divided by 40,139 further divided by 365. Therefore, the number of days amount to 68.49 days. The second ratio, that is debtors turnover ratio, it is also known as receivables turnover ratio. In case if the firm sells its good on credit, the realization of sales revenue is thereby delayed because it is being sold on credit. The receivables are therefore to be treated and it is to be thereby considered that how much there is delay in the revenue and to what extent is the credit period given or for what particular time period the amount is getting blocked. The speed with which the receivables are being collected purely affects the liquidity position of the firm. The debtors turnover ratio throws the light on the collection and the credit policies of the firm. It measures the efficiency with which management is managing its accounts receivable. The formula of this ratio is sales divided by average accounts receivable. As accounts receivables pertains only to credit sales, it is often recommended to compute the debtors turnover ratio with reference to credit sales instead of considering total sales. Therefore, the debtors turnover ratio is credit sales divided by average accounts receivable.